All right, I am going to continue our story. We are on chapter 13. Letitia Hellion was gently panting from her sprint out of the testing lab. Piper was on the verge of hyperventilating, and Conrad subtly slumped his shoulders and allowed his facial features to return to their normal look of sullen complaint. For an agonizing 3 seconds, there was silence. At the precise moment that Piper was sure her chest might break open, or that she might burst into tears and faint, or some combination of the three, Conrad threw himself upon the awkward quiet. "It's Piper. She's hiding something," he blurted, roughly shoving Piper forward to Dr. Hellion. Piper's mouth flew open. What happened to the comrade she'd been speaking to? He had become an entirely different person. "Is that true, Piper?" Dr. Hellion was amazingly calm, her eyes gentle and kind. "Are you hiding something?" "Tell her," Conrad sulked. Piper looked at Conrad in mute dismay. What was she supposed to say? "What is it, Piper? You can tell me." "Bella stole something and Piper saw it," Conrad tattled. "What?" No kidding, now Piper was utterly lost. "I saw everything, and if you don't tell, I will," Conrad turned to Dr. Hellion. "Bella had this little black bug in her hand when she was leaving. It looked like a cricket, and she showed it to Piper when no one else was looking." Conrad smugly turned to Piper, as though he'd just put one up on her. Piper looked at Conrad and marveled at his complete genius. "Is that true, Piper?" This revelation made Dr. Hellion relax and sit down at her desk. "Well," Piper didn't have as much patience as Conrad, but she tried her best to play along. "Bella was walking and, well, I saw it in her hand and then Bella let Piper touch it before she hid it in her pocket," Conrad finished quickly. Dr. Hellion nodded carefully, looking between the two children. Her eyes gave nothing away, and as usual her face was as calm as a lake of still water. "I see. I wonder if she had to tell." "Piper, for your information, students aren't permitted to interact with specimens unless supervised. Conrad is correct that it is your duty to report this." "I'm sorry, Dr. Hellion. I don't want to break any rules." "Yes, I know that, Piper." Dr. Hellion paused, looking between the two of them. "And what is this I hear about a fight?" Conrad looked genuinely surprised and even consulted Piper with a confused expression, as if to see if she knew what Dr. Hellion was talking about. "No, there was no fight." Piper couldn't get over how convincing Conrad was. It was eerie. "Nurse Toll reported that Piper's bird was thrown in the garbage," Dr. Hellion persisted. Once again, Conrad's amazement could not have been more genuine. "As you can see for yourself, Piper's holding her wooden bird right now." Conrad nudged Piper, and Piper held up the bird. "I see." As usual, Conrad had all of his bases covered. Something told Dr. Hellion that if she asked the other children, they would tell a similar story, and it was even possible that by tomorrow Nurse Toll would claim that he'd misreported the incident. There was nothing to be gained from questioning them further, even though Piper's eyes were as wide as two moons and her knees were shaking. "Well, that certainly explains everything. Thank you for coming forward. You may return to the dormitory now." "Good night, Dr. Hellion." Conrad turned to leave, and Piper followed him. Before they could reach the door, Dr. Hellion's phone rang. "Yes, Agent. What about the surveillance tapes? What sort of computer error? I find it hard to believe that nothing can be retrieved." "I see." Conrad didn't look or speak to Piper all the way back to the dormitory, and by the time they returned, it was already bedtime. "Lights out," Nurse Toll patrolled the dormitory hallway. In a state of shock and anguish, Piper waited for 30 agonizing minutes in her room after lights out. During the wait, she tried to calm her nerves by tending to the little black cricket, whom she decided to name Sebastian. She'd never known anyone named Sebastian, but it struck Piper as a very grand name. And the more she watched the cricket, it became clear to her that he was a very, very fine and elegant creature indeed. He created a little house for Sebastian on her desks using a small box, and he seemed thankful for her efforts and settled into his box for the evening. The instant Nurse Toll completed his second night check, Piper flew out of her window and landed in Conrad's room, where she found him completely dressed and calmly packing a case on his bed. "What's going on here?" "I would have thought that was obvious even to you by now." Conrad wasn't in the least surprised to have Piper suddenly come flying through his window, and continued to calmly place books and files into his case. But they're hurting all those beautiful creatures," Piper blathered, on the verge of hysterics. I saw that giraffe and the turtle and the rose and so many others. It's not right. We've got to get out of here. For once, you are absolutely correct on all accounts. I couldn't have put it better myself. Unfortunately, getting out of here wasn't possible to do until you arrived. I needed a flyer to make an escape work. But now that you're here and you've got your head on straight, we can go. Comrade closed his case, and Piper realized that he had actually packed up all of his belongings and was ready to leave that very instant. You mean we're going to leave right now? Just like that? Piper took a step back, unprepared. Too much had happened in too short a space of time, and she was reeling. Like you said, what are we waiting for? But, well, shouldn't we tell someone? Do something? Conrad sighed, put his case down. He seemed older than his 11 years, and he crossed his arms over his chest and looked at Piper like a parent would a confused child. Oh, so you want to go through all that song and dance. All right, let's get it over with so that we can get out of here. I'll start at the beginning. Here, you'd better sit down. This might take a while. Conrad pointed to the bed, and Piper sat on the edge of it, her eyes wide. He spoke with strained patience, as though he'd gone through this a million times, which he had, if only in his own head. First of all, did Dr. Hellion ever tell you what this place, this institute, is called? Piper thought back and realized that Dr. Hellion hadn't, nor had Piper ever asked. No. She sure didn't. And what about the logo? Have you seen this around? Comrade pointed to a piece of stationery with the letters INSANE printed neatly across the top. Piper nodded. She'd seen it everywhere. They all had. She'd never given it any thought, though. These letters stand for the Institute of Normalcy, Stability, and Non-Exceptionality, or INSANE, to make things a little less wordy. INSANE is a perfectly constructed, faultlessly operated facility with only one purpose: to make everything and anything that passes through its doors normal. It is 100% effective in this task. Since its inception, it has crafted a seamless and systematic process that endures absolute results. Conrad reached for the lamp on his desk and switched it on. Because he'd taken out the normal light bulb and replaced it with a black bulb, this light suddenly exposed to Piper white writing on every square inch of Conrad's room. Late at night, when everyone else was sleeping, Comrade had been hard at work. Trust a genius to devise a foolproof way to hide his secrets in plain view. Formulas were scrawled across walls. There were diagrams on his doors. Charts covered the desk, and even the ceiling wasn't spared of his handiwork, all of which was undetectable without the blacklight. Holy moly! Piper had to crane her neck to take it all in. Comrade pointed to a diagram on the door, trying to focus Piper. Over here, you can see how it all starts with tracking devices that have been positioned across the globe. They quickly identify and isolate a specimen that shows itself to be exceptional, whether it be a bird or a fish or a human. Comrade next pointed to a larger diagram with an array of arrows and formulas. As soon as a positive identification on a creature is established, it's then flagged by satellite. Retrieval units are immediately dispatched to apprehend it. From the moment the specimen is flagged, an electronic surveillance net is thrown over it, making it a sitting duck. By the time it is brought down here into the facility, its fate is sealed. Make no mistake, there is only one way out of here, and that is Dr. Hellion's way. Comrade smartly tapped the corner of what appeared to be an ostensibly ordinary Snoopy calendar that hung on the wall. Immediately, it unraveled to the floor like an accordion, revealing still more diagrams, charts, and numbers. First, the specimen is placed under observation and carefully studied. Scientists document and record all physical and behavioral characteristics, creating an exhaustive dossier of information, which is then used to isolate a chemical that will stop it from doing whatever it is that they do not consider normal. After years of trial and error, they have found that the appropriate drug administered to the specimen will promptly alter its brain patterns and physiological chemistry. Once that is accomplished, the bulk of their work is done, and all they need is time before the specimen will revert to normalcy. They know that if a specimen does not use its ability for a certain period of time, the ability will be lost forever. In other words, you have to use it or you lose it. Comrade paused to let that information sink in before moving to the formulas on the opposite wall and continuing more quietly. While the vast majority respond to the right drug, there are exceptions to the rule. And in those rare cases, Dr. Hellion will resort to more radical and invasive means. She'll have the specimen surgically torn apart and put back together again. She'll use gene therapy, alter its DNA, maim the offending exceptional characteristic, and finally, if all else fails, destroy the specimen altogether. And that's what they're doing on level 4. And I'm going to pause there.